June 6th, 2024. Speedrunner Underground was doing Sonic Adventure 2 runs when something unusual happened. They noticed that when loading a new file, something about the game just wasn't right. Instead of loading a completely new file, the game appeared to have everything completed, but also not at the same time. While they didn't know what to make of it at first, the Sonic Adventure 2 speedrunning community would quickly figure out just how big this discovery would be. Okay, so what actually happened here? Well, for starters, there is something important to mention about the version Underground was playing on. Underground is a runner that primarily plays on the lesser ran Dreamcast version of Sonic Adventure 2. All main versions of Sonic Adventure 2 are quite unique from each other, and the Dreamcast version would be no exception to that rule. In fact, there's a video by Greenalink that is 3.5 hours long, just on differences from the Dreamcast release to the battle port on GameCube. After some testing, Underground quickly realized that playing on Dreamcast actually mattered here, because the console has its very own version of the memory card, the VMU. The VMU was relatively unique. It not only acted as a memory card storing your saves, but it also had a display that allowed you to see different things during gameplay, or you could also play with it on the go. The Dreamcast was way ahead of its time, and you would be just as cool as the Dreamcast if you subscribe. We're on the road to 50k if you want to help out. Considering the VMU was actually plugged directly into the controller you were playing on, removing it during gameplay would be remarkably easy. During speedruns on Dreamcast, it is actually faster to make the file and then unplug the VMU afterwards, so that the game doesn't try to save after every stage. This time, Underground accidentally unplugged the VMU while the file was being generated. They then noticed that stage select was there when it shouldn't be, but behaved oddly, and you could choose from all 3 stories in story select. However, they also had no emblems, which seemed to contradict what they were seeing, as you normally needed the emblems to unlock these features in the first place. Fellow Dreamcast runner Squeefy did some deep diving into this phenomenon to see what's actually going on under the hood. When you pull out the VMU while creating a save, the save file is corrupted. Normally when you make a new file, the former file's values stay in memory until you do something to update it, like collecting an emblem after completing a stage. The game will then reset and update the value. When the save corruption happens though, this value is set much higher than would normally be possible, at 240 emblems minus whatever the previously cached file was, which just so happens to make the game think that you have unlocked everything, as emblems are how the game tracks your natural progression. So even if you actually haven't done anything on this file, the game assumes you've done it all. Okay, so this is a funky hardware manipulation glitch, but what does this actually mean for the speedrun? Well, quickly the speedrunning community realized that this essentially broke the game wide open. One of the most popular speedrun categories for any game is known as any %. This essentially just means to beat the game as fast as possible by any means, including sequence breaks and wrong warps. Previously, there was a weird wrong warp setup on the PC version of the game where you can utilize the Chao key glitch to send a character to the wrong stage. This was originally found as a cool way to send Sonic or Shadow to a stage they weren't meant to be in or something along those lines. Eventually, they figured out that doing the Chao key glitch in story mode and completing the mission actually advances the story every time you do it. So after a lot of trial and error, they realized that sending Shadow to Security Hall, doing the Chao key glitch, and completing the stage 41 times in a row was the fastest way to skip to the credits of the game. Yeah, so that's an insanely watered down version of what actually happens, but it's a really weird and very cool tech demo of a run. The world record for this is about 27 minutes in real time, which is a hell of a lot faster than the normal way to beat the game, all stories, which takes about an hour and 20 minutes at top level. But this new discovery would put both of those methods to shame. By creating a new file and removing the VMU intentionally, the tech I'll refer to as VMU jacking, you could immediately go to story select and menu all the way to the final boss fight. After beating the final boss, you get the credits and that's the run. This discovery had made it so that the game could be corrupted from no file at all to saying sayonara to Shadow the Hedgehog in just a few minutes. This was an earth-shattering discovery, essentially cutting any % into a fraction of the time. But that's not even where this ends. The 100% category of Sonic Adventure 2 is the 180 emblems category, which counts getting an A rank in every mission, completing all 3 stories, raising a max rank Chao, and completing the races. This is an incredibly long speedrun. Even the world record clocks in at over 8 hours and 30 minutes. And somehow, this discovery can even break this record. Originally, it was thought that you needed a file with 60 emblems to add up, since the save corruption sets the emblems to 240, minus whatever was on the previous file. The theory of getting a previous file to 60 emblems took that 240 emblems value and subtracted that to 180, which is the max emblem count for Sonic Adventure 2. This discovery would still make for a significantly faster version of the 180 emblems run. But not long after, the community figured out something even bigger. The only mission that wasn't completed with the save corruption for some reason was Final Chase M2. Even though you initially start with no emblems at all after VMU jacking, if you complete a single mission, you will be rewarded with all of the emblems the game thinks that it owes you, which is all 180 emblems. While you can load the stage select menu option, the save corruption totally breaks this menu, not allowing you to navigate it at all. If you unlock the stages like normal by playing through the story, this would actually allow you to navigate the menu. So you could in theory beat Dark Story up to Final Chase on a normal file, complete Final Chase M2, perform the save corruption on that file, and then load into the final scene select. After loading into this cutscene and skipping it, you would then collect all 180 emblems. This was leaps and bounds better than any other way to get all 180 emblems, but the speedrun community wasn't satisfied with this. The run still took around an hour to complete since you had to play through basically all of Dark Story and then do Final Chase M2. And since they were so close to being able to complete the run almost instantly, they kept looking for another way. Underground then found another big discovery. If you press A and B at the same time, it simultaneously exits you out of the stage select while also selecting a stage. In this in-between state of exiting and selecting a stage, you can menu through the stage select like normal, albeit in complete darkness. However, even if you were able to menu to Final Chase in the complete darkness, you can only select the first mission, which does basically nothing for us here. But speedrunners are nothing if not determined. Brian PSO then pointed out Mission 6 glitch. One of the most obscure and previously useless glitches can actually save the day. You see, the broken stages that we have right now only allow you to access Mission 1, since the game thinks that's not completed. However, if you go to the Chao Garden option, then you do the A plus B strat, the game gets really confused here. Because Chao Garden normally gives you 6 options to enter as each character, the game now thinks that every stage has 6 missions to menu through. This leads to the fabled Mission 6 that normally doesn't exist in the game's code, which again is normally useless. However, this glitch goes from incredibly useless to the savior with VMU jacking. Instead of menuing to a mission that doesn't exist at all, you can skip all of the other methods and go directly to Final Chase M2. At this point, the discovery of VMU jacking had somehow made it so that the glitched 100% category is faster than the glitch to beat the game category, which honestly doesn't even make sense. This strat is so crazy. I also want to point out that from the discovery of this new tech to finding the final puzzle piece with Mission 6 glitch, all of this occurred within 48 hours. The Sonic Adventure 2 speedrunning community is truly something else. As of late 2025, these records stand at 2 minutes and 19 seconds for the any percent category, and 1 minute and 24 seconds for the glitched 180 emblems category. While these records can certainly be improved, it's hard to imagine that they can go down much more. In the any percent category, the current record has a very solid final boss IO, leaving basically no time on the table. The glitched 100% category has a bit more time to save, but even with more improvements, the record can only be dropped by seconds at best. As cool as these discoveries are, it sort of begs the question, how much does this really matter? The any percent category has never been the most popular in Sonic Adventure 2 in general, as you're skipping essentially the entire game and cutting out everything speedrunners love about it. This run takes that concept and turns it up to 11. Because of this, the discovery was surprisingly controversial. Some were very excited about it, as it was a monumental find, but others were concerned, as it gated one of the game's most important categories behind a console that isn't very accessible. The community was torn on how to handle this. Should the category replace any percent on the boards? How about the 180 emblems category? Should they get their own new category? All of these questions ran through the community's mind and made this process way more complicated. Another factor is that the main speedrun hosting leaderboard, speedrun.com, technically bans hardware manipulation as a whole. VMU jacking definitely fit under that umbrella, even if it was a lesser offense as hardware manipulation goes. Because of this, the community decided to put VMU jacking as its own board in the miscellaneous categories, as the tech is remarkably niche, and honestly not too enjoyable to run. As cool as this was, nobody would sit down and run these categories for hours at a time. This was a niche category most runners would do once and then move on to do something more enjoyable. The Dreamcast community wasn't too happy about this, as it was the fastest version to beat the game. It should be treated as such and be the new version of the any % category. For the rest of the community, this was a run that was restricted to the game's least accessible version, and no more than an interesting display of what could be done in SA2, more so than an actual speedrun. So, quick update, after I finished editing the video, the information in that last section actually changed. As of September 6, 2025, the Any% and 180 Emblems board added a subcategory for VMU jacking. For a lot of the same reasons I mentioned before, the moderators and community at large felt that VMU jacking deserved more of a spotlight, as it was such a big discovery. Regardless of this discovery's true impact to the speedrunning community at large, this was a massive step forward in not only understanding on a deeper level how Sonic Adventure 2 works, but it's also a landmark find in a game's history. The speedrunning community is so cool, and I love to tell these stories of how they come up with some of the craziest stuff you'll ever see in gaming. If you want to see more content from me about insane speedruns, make sure to check out my channel membership or Patreon for exclusive content, early access to new uploads, member shoutouts, and more. Special shoutouts to Brian PSO and Underground for helping with the research for this video. Thanks everyone for watching, and see you next time!